We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat, my live chat. It has been some time since I've seen you guys. It's been about 2 weeks since I did one of these. The last one I did, I was breaking down some of the offensive recruits that we got. This one is going to be your standard Wednesday evening live chat. And yes, I'm back. I will be doing content. I don't know if it'll be in this form every week, but you will certainly have some content on YouTube from me every single week. I got a lot of things situated on my end finally. But yeah, I'm back in the saddle and I'm good and I'm ready to go. Let's see. There's quite a bit, quite a few things I want to talk about today. You guys get in the comments what you guys want to talk about. I see we got a few in here already. And I'm gonna go as long as we get participation. I'm at least do a half hour today. We may do the whole hour depending on how many topics and comments and things come in. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't expect a huge crowd because yeah, it's been a minute. And it's off season. Off season is always a little bit slower. But anyway, what are you gonna do? Yeah, so what I did want to talk about today, one of the key topics I wanted to talk about today was the new hire that UTSA has brought in to handle NIL. So this is through Playfly. They're calling it Playfly Max. I know it's we have a deal with Playfly Sports, but whenever I read the UTSA Athletics post today, they refer to it as Playfly Max. Anyway, Playfly Max brought in a GM, a NIL GM, that will basically be tasked with building the relationships, with businesses and companies around San Antonio, and maybe not even that extends beyond San Antonio, but essentially to get NIL deals, to get sponsorships, to help UTSA get in more money. We talk about NIL, and what that means to recruiting, what that means in terms of building a team and building a roster that can go out and actually compete for a championship. And obviously we need to sustain some of that, right? But that's what we finally done. We finally brought that in. Athletic director Lisa Campos has been talking about this position quite a bit in her. I don't know if you guys have read her bold letter statement. Would be interested to hear what you guys think about that for those of you who've read it. But yeah, she mentioned that they were hiring for this role. She also mentioned on I think it was a podcast or a radio show or something like that last week, that they were hiring for this role as well, and they had closed in. I found out yesterday because someone close to me was were interviewing for that role, that they had selected a person, hence my tweet that I put out yesterday afternoon in regards to that. So anyway, I'll kind of start there. I think one of the interesting things about that hire, one of the interesting things that I'm thinking about that hire is a couple things. Number one, like, it's one of those situations where this is a new type of thing, right? Like this NIL movement is it's in its youth. It's in its infancy, I should say. And I don't even know how to measure success, how anybody will measure success in this role, right? I mean, obviously they're going to set goals, right? But like, what's realistic out there? Is there the data out there now, at this point, to like be able to see if this person is going to come in and to deliver? I'd imagine it's going to be very difficult for them to come in and do a job. But the guy they got, Jordan Pelt, I looked at some of his background in preparation for today's show. And yeah, he has an extensive background in sales and marketing and things like that. He has been a social media ambassador. He was a top, I think, sales rep for Granger. I think that's like an industrial supply company, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and he did a lot of business to business sales. So I'm sure he already has some leverage, or he has some probably some relationships he can leverage. I think that would let me make sure you can hear me. Yeah, I think I almost hit my mute button. I don't want to do that. But anyway, yeah, I think um we got to see what he can do. I'll be honest with you. I was hoping that it was someone a bit more homegrown, someone who had been a part of the someone that people already know, right? Like that's already a name that you can sort of relate San Antonio or sports and San Antonio to that person. And like I said, I don't know what has succeeded in this role in other schools, what the data suggests, so on and so forth. I felt like the candidate that they were considering that I knew about would have given you that. Um, so it just made me think, and that was one of the reasons they brought him in was to sort of play on that, right? Like someone who has a popular name around the city, someone who has a very sports heavy background, sort of to sort of be a represent, to sort of represent UTSA in that regard. But they took the route of, you know what, we're going to get someone who's a proven salesperson, and you got to come in and give it a chance. One of the things that was interesting was I'm going to read out a tweet reply that I thought was very interesting that I got yesterday from it's CT Robinson 10, Todd Robinson on Twitter. He responded to my he quote retweeted my tweet in regards to that hire will play fly sports, and his position on this is generally you know his position is career academics answer to everything is outsource, zero business experience and zero grassroots relationships on which to build on. He calls it a mistake. He says, here's some free advice: hire runners. And he used Frank Harris for an example. He said, then go hire other local kids or local kids who are basically the stars of their respective sports, whether that's a men's or women's sports, that are already sort of invested. And then he went on to suggest like a local council, business leaders, so on and so forth. I think some of that is probably a little bit out of UTSA's budget. And they are probably going to play the copycat. Um, they're gonna play that role because other schools are doing sort of the same things and are having some success. Um, and his point was professional fundraisers will fail because they aren't authentic. Magic happens when committed people are incentivized to um, do what only they can do. UTSA will only be a magical destination when the administration gets real about it. Yeah, that last piece, I think it highlights some of my concern with this. Whenever you bring in a professional sort of cookie cutter way to say, hey, we're going to come in and raise money, they're generally going to use the same old tired tactics to get people involved and to drive interest. And in some ways that works, but I don't think the UTSA and San Antonio problem is that simple. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But to me, I think that I don't know. You just got to give him a chance, and we got to see, if this stuff really takes us to the next level. Uh, so yeah, get in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the GM hire. Like I said, I was kind of clued in on I knew. I had some insight on like sort of this whole process, the process to even bring in Playfly in. But it is kind of weird that it took so long for them to make a hire, number one. And then we'll see what happens with the direction that they go to in it. So we'll see. I'll get to some of the questions we got here before I get into the next big topic for me. Kermit, shout out to Kermit, man. Kermit, he or she, I think it's a he. But he sent me some film of one of the defensive recruits. That's one of the reasons it's so difficult to get really good quality film if you don't have like ties to a coach or something like that, where you can actually go in and like look at some of the tape yourself. I used to have those connections. I don't, at least from at UTSA at this point. So it's tough whenever I'm trying to go dig up film myself. I have to go get, because I don't like to watch highlights. I like to watch full games. Anybody who's ever done any type of scouting or recruiting will tell you highlights are the biggest liars, right? What are those players doing when the camera's not on them or when they're not making a big play? That's what details if you got a good player or not. Anyway, he sent me some film on one of the guys we got in, so I just want to say thank you to him for that. That was big time. Appreciate it. But he has the first question. He says, with the new running back coach, Tommy Robinson, what are your thoughts on him and how you want to see him manage such a large running back room? So I like that he's experienced. I think that's big. He's been around the block. Obviously, him and Coach Traylor were at UT at the same time together, so they have history. They know each other very well. I like that he's old, because I think that he's probably less likely to jump ship quick. You know, that's sort of the way I look at that. Like when you get somebody with a little bit more experience, depending on where they are in their career, they're more likely to stay put for a few years and like they get really, really invested in what their project is. So anyway, that's just like a theory that I have in my head that gets my head churning on that. But yeah, I think in general, in terms of how he'll manage the running back room, I think establishing who your number one guy is and who's going to be your GoDaddies are going to be important. And I hope he does that. We obviously have such a talented running back room. It's a good problem to have, but I would like to see us focus on one or two guys this year and get somebody in a rhythm, right? Get some guy, get whoever your best guy is that you want to put your money on the line for. Like I want that guy to get most of the carries, and I want that guy to be able to get a rhythm. What I felt like happened too much, and what sputtered sort of our running game. Obviously, there's an offensive line component to this that makes it. We have to running backs have to depend on them to open up lanes so they can do their business, right? But I think we far too much last year were so running back by committee that like we almost tried everybody until somebody made a big play and then we just roll with that person for the rest of the game. That's essentially how it seemed. Obviously, they were trying some of the same guys, but it was always of like, oh, we're going to ride the hot hand. I miss the days of having a guy like Sincere McCormick that that you're going to hand the ball off 30 times to, or he's going to get 25 touches or something like that. I'm not saying we need to go back to that exactly, but I like that concept of, you know what, we know who's going to get the ball. That guy's going to get in the rhythm, because that's how those guys have big seasons and become huge threats, is not when they're getting, 10 touches this game, 3 touches this game, 14 touches this game, and then that following game, 6 touches. No, like these guys get in big rhythms whenever they are getting the ball consistently, 15 to 20 times a game, or, in some cases, 15 to 20, 25 times a game, somewhere in that threshold where you can actually establish a rhythm and you can actually establish, consistency. And I think that's also good, in my opinion, for the offensive line as well. You like those guys, like it. For example, if you got some backs who are really, really good they have a sort of bread and butter of what they are, you're going to play call for that. And I think, that even helps out the offensive line because they know, hey, this guy he's really good at power or something like that. Power is going to be in the game plan week in and week out. And all those repetitions are going to make us better overall. Offensive line, running back, everything, everybody, right? So anyway, I would like him to come in, obviously, I hope he stays for a little bit of time. We're not having to worry about a different guy jumping ship every single year. That's what I'm looking for. Then I want him to come in and hopefully establish a pecking order, and then have guys ready to go whenever they're called upon. But I would like to see two guys be sort of the standout. These are our GoDaddies, and not sometimes 5 or 6 running backs touching the ball unless we're blowing a team out. Mike says, glad to have UTSA football talk. I am too. What are some of the key things to watch for as we head toward the spring game? Obviously, for me, I think the most important thing to look out for right now, or what I'm going to be keeping an eye on, is the quarterback number 2. Who's going to be the backup? Obviously, I think Brandon Tennyson is slotted in to be second at this particular time. But I mean, what we just brought in the guy from BYU. What is it, Noah Lugo? I think I'm getting his name right. We brought in Max Gerlich. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what that QB battle is going to look like. I think guys are going to be jockeying for position and things like that. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see. Obviously, Owen McCown. This is Owen McCown. Does he got a year? He only has 1 year left, I think, right? Somebody let me know in the chat. I can look it up real quick. I think McCown has 1 year left? I think he has one more season. I don't know if I can trust UTSA side. They're calling him a redshirt sophomore, so that would mean he has two more seasons. Interesting. Either way, yeah, I think the number 2 guy is always going to be important. Number 1, I think one of the biggest things is, what if Owen gets hurt, right? You don't want to have to piss your season away just because we lost one, a quarterback. Obviously, it's a pivotal position, but I'm always a fan of having 2 guys that can run your offense and not be so dependent on one guy. I mean, obviously, most teams are like that, right? But very good teams have a backup that can come in and at least sustain an offensive attack to make you a threat, right? Even if that means getting the ball out quicker or something like that. So anyway, I think the QB2 battle is something I'm going to be watching for. That's going to be a huge one. Another one for me is the receiver position. I think the receiver position is a tricky one because you do got JT Clark coming back. But then you don't know what that situation is like. Some of the guys that we got, I think they can step in. As you guys have seen, whenever I did the offensive breakdown, if you hadn't seen that, make sure you go check it out. But some of the guys that we got coming in, the kid that we got from, where's he from? Is it from TCU? No, Michigan State. Oh yeah, that dude's playing. That dude's legit, man. So yeah, I want to see. Obviously, we got Amador too as well, and Devin McEwen. I think our receiving core can really take the next step. But I think we're gonna need. We got McEwen, and we got a lot of good talent at receiver. But like, who's gonna take that big time player step? Obviously, Amador started to do a lot of that last year, but we need depth at that position, and we need threats at that position, especially with our situation in general. Obviously, they start playing a lot better toward the end of the year, but yeah, I think the receiver position is going to be big. Another one, it's tricky. I'm gonna. You asked this question. I'm basically saying every position, tight end, but I'm a group in tight end and receivers together, right? Because it's part of the passing game, but one of the guys you got to highlight is Oscar, right? Oscar is no longer going to be there, and he was obviously a leader of the team. He made big catches for UTSA throughout his tenure, even though last year he didn't get targeted as much as he had in the past. But tight end, we brought in some big dogs from the tight end standpoint coming into this year. So I'd obviously want to see what their development's like. But yeah, I want to see Owen McCown's weapons. Like, we've seen him get hot in the second half of the season and start to play well. Okay, now what is his weapons going to look like going into next season, and how comfortable is he going to be throwing to those guys. Now he may not even play nothing but talking about you know, during the spring game, he's probably not going to play much at all. But it'll be good to see his weapons get to showcase a little bit of stuff. But that QB2 and the weapons that those guys will be throwing to is going to be huge. Just to give you one position on the and obviously it goes without saying O-line, but there's only so much in the spring game that you're going to be able to see. On the defensive side, the one position I'm looking at is probably the cornerback position with Zai Frazier, who was a big-time player for us last year, not being there. Denver Harris transferring out. It'll be interesting to see what that cornerback room looks like going forward, and who's going to step up and show out. So, yeah, I know I gave you a lot there, Mike, but that's what I had. Hello, Olivia. Olivia says, what position do you think need a boost in personnel before the fall during the next portal? Great question. Number one, I think that obviously you want to see more consistency from the offensive line, right? And this is a separate question from like what I'm watching for and Mike's question. This is like positions that I do think we need to shore up and tighten up. Our offensive line, we just have to be better than we were last year. I know they start blocking better and start doing better in the second half of the season, but we need consistency because even though we start opening up lanes and our offense starts scoring a lot of points and putting up a lot of yards, there were still far too many situations where our quarterback was under pressure. I tweeted this week. I was looking at some of the advanced stats from UTSA over the course of the 2024 season, and if you compare it to the conference, Owen McCown was the second most pressured quarterback, behind Tulane's quarterback, the second most. That's a direct stat to our offensive line and what's happening. And his interception rate increased by almost 3 times when he was pressured versus when he wasn't pressured, or when he wasn't under pressure, when he had to throw the ball and he had time, right? So to me, it just shows, and that's for the most part, unless some of these guys, except some of these crazy guys in the NFL who are just experts at the quarterback position. But for the most part, especially on a college level, quarterbacks who are going to be under heavy pressure are going to make poor decisions, rush decisions, and they're going to put the ball in danger, and that's a clear way of losing football games as well. So obviously coaches and things are looking at these types of advanced analytics as well, and they're building game plans around those things, right? And they're going to say, hey, guess what? Whenever we look back on 2024, how did Owen McCown respond to being blitzed? Well, they're going to look and see, well, against the blitz, he threw 6 touchdowns against the blitz, but he also threw 4 interceptions against the blitz last year, right? These are the sorts of things we have to be thinking about. And to be fair, he took care of the ball pretty well, only threw 9 interceptions compared to all the touchdowns he threw, and compared to how much we threw the ball. We threw the ball a lot. If you look in the conference, he had the second most pass attempts in our conference as well. So we throw the ball a ton. So anyway, whenever you look at those, when you look at those ratios, anytime you can start to chop wood and chop some of that down, that's what you want to look for. The offensive line, certainly, we got to get some more consistency there. We got to get some more consistency. Some of that has to do with, we just need some of these guys to get some experience being next to each other, right? Instead of having all new guys coming in every single time. We need to put together an offensive line that's has a couple years, right, of being in the program together. I mean, some of that stuff is difficult considering the climate that we're in right now, but we need a little bit more chemistry there, and we'll reap better results. I'll answer your question on the defense side of the ball. I would say probably the secondary in general. And my reasoning for that is, I mean, we've lost good guys in that secondary. I mean, in the safety position and the corner position. and I think it's important for us to reload. I think we have some guys who look good on tape in terms of what they're coming in and do. And we got some guys like Elijah Newell is one of them who's got some experience as a young guy in our defense. But I think the secondary is going to be a very, very important part on our defense that we may need a boost, but I don't even know if it's necessarily a boost, but there's just a question mark around how that group is going to perform. They were under a lot of pressure last year because we played a lot of teams that threw the ball and we gave up some big plays there. It'll be interesting to see them reload and get back steady this year. Let's see. Kermit says Jordan Pelt went to UT Austin, so I think his probable connections here in Texas were an eye catcher. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Listen, I'm not questioning like if I don't know if he's the right guy or not, right? Like I think in general, I think you'd want someone that has a reputation in Texas, of course, but also has some sort of a reputation around San Antonio. That's just my theory. I don't know if that helps or not. I just think it can only help, right? Like it just can, especially if you are a lot of what you're going to be covering is going to be in the city. It helps to have a big name, but I'm not necessarily saying someone who doesn't have a big name or something like that in San Antonio can't do the job. If the guy can market, if the guy can sell, that's exactly what we need. And based on his resume, he's probably seen me look at his LinkedIn today. But yeah, based on all of that, like I'm on board. I just want them to start delivering more and more because the game is getting a lot more difficult with these house settlements and all this stuff is getting a lot more difficult to sort of beat the curve on this NIL stuff. We're going to be a team that struggles because we don't have the history as a lot of these other schools, but it's good to see us start to put the pieces in place. I was looking at what UT has, and they got a whole system of people that's running this thing, man. And we have one. So it just kind of shows you where we are, but at least we're starting somewhere. You got to get a start. Mike says, hopefully the plan for Playfly is to tap into our local resources like Frank or Jesse James, Leha to generate local money. Absolutely. And listen, I think and that's the thing too. I think one of the things that's important with this is who are they going to partner with? Who are they going to choose to partner with? Who are the people with influence that they're going to partner with that can actually help drive some of these relationships and help these relationships turn into financial relationships and benefits for UTSA. I think it'll be hugely important, or I think it'll be a huge miss not to. I think it'll be a huge miss not to tap into local resources like a Frank Harris, and some of the other legends of the program who are San Antonio homegrown. So it'll be interesting to see how the strategy plays out, what they plan to do, how they plan to carry these things out. I would love if they could. I don't know. I would love to see what their benefit is, like see what they've benefited. Like one of the things that we've already seen or that I kind of clocked is, when they announced the and you know what? Yeah, I was gonna bring this up. I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts in this. So let me know in the comments what you think. But when UTSA announced the ticket price increase, what's interesting about Playfly is they were really like, hey, I helped out doing this. Like they really were proud of the work they done at doing the market research, looking at the numbers, looking at this, looking at that, and figuring out like, all right, we have a goal. 8% is where we should be at. And like, I thought it was just interesting that UTSA announced this price increase. And then I seen, so this could just be me being weird, but it was just interesting to me. But Seeing UTSA announce the price increase and then seeing Playfly tweet in celebration of the price increase and their involvement in it. Um, I don't know why that felt that just like I don't know why that felt weird to me. And like not in like such a I don't know, I'm not trying to start anything. Not in such a bad it's not a terrible way, but I was just like, okay, great. Like I think most people, especially like most folks who support the program that's in sort of in the know about what's going on and things like that. I think a lot of folks were or I seen the ticket price increase got I think a warm reception from fans, at least from what I've seen on Twitter. Um, but I don't know. It's just weird to see them like, hey, like we did this. We we celebrated prices increasing. I That was just weird to me. But the reason I bring that up is I wonder if they'll do the same thing whenever Jordan Pep gets a deal with one of the big companies in San Antonio. I would love for them to do it that way. To do that. That's something to celebrate for sure. Um I don't know if they're like celebrating the price increase and their involvement in it as outwardly as they did is the right move, but it would be great if some of the people we partner with, some of the sponsorships and things that we get from this. I hope they keep that same approach with those things. It's just funny how like companies and businesses and like all these folks, it's weird that they do things like this and then they get real quiet about other things. I just hope they continue their stuff. Shout out to Angela. Angela, birds up, everyone. Subscribing. Like, thanks so much. Angela's always gonna keep me honest and making sure people are liking and subscribing. Man, we flew through 30 minutes already. That is crazy. I feel like I'm just getting started. That's that's crazy. That's crazy. Let's see. It's Rab. My man, it's Rab. How you doing, brother? He says need to rid of the O line coach. Haven't had a good O line in 4 years or so. Ah, you know what? Um, you're not lying. Our offensive line has not been great, to be fair. But the only problem with that is do you know who the offensive line coach is? Yeah, that dude's not getting fired. Yeah, Trailer's not gonna fire his own brother. It's not happening. But I love the energy, bro. Good to hear from you. Kermit says, how do you feel about A7M being our first game next year? Me A&M. Do you feel like us being exposed by big time talent like that will have us ready quicker? Uh that's a good question. All right, so let me answer the first one. How do I feel about A&M being our first game next year? I'm okay with it. This is the sort of thing that you want for a school on our level. Like you want to play the big teams, and the big teams are basically going to use you like warm up games for that. That's just the nature of the beast. Playing a prominent school like that, that has a huge presence here in Texas. That has they're in the SEC. I think it's great exposure for our team. I do think it's a fair way to look at our team and have them go up against competition that we probably aren't going to do well against. I think that's totally fine. It's okay. And you go in there and you try to shock the world, and that's all you can do. I think it's good for schools good for schools in the AAC to play some of these bigger teams. Um, you get money for it as well. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I feel good about it. But do you feel like us being exposed by big time talent like that will have us ready quicker? I don't necessarily think it can have you ready quicker. I can tell you that it can create doubt. It really can. It really can. Um, I can remember, this is history time, but I can remember we played Oklahoma State. To be fair, we had a good year that year. That was the year we went. What did we go that year? We went 8-4 in the Conference USA. I think that, yeah. So it was the second. Was it the second time we played Oklahoma State? Because this was Oklahoma State at the Dome. I played Oklahoma State my senior year at Boone Pickens Stadium. Okay, yeah. So this is my junior year. I think one of them. I don't know. Anyway, we played Oklahoma State at the Dome, and I can remember one of the coaches, um, like basically saying like we were getting like beat by him bad, and like he was saying like I'm just happy to be here, and that stuck with me, and that stuck with some of the people. Um, that stuck with some of the people or some of the other players too that year, because it was just like what like we go into every game and we go into every game with the expectation to win, bro. Rather it's UTSA versus Oklahoma State or UTSA versus UT or something. You go into games to win. You don't go into games to lose. And anyway, I bring that up to say like sometimes it can shatter confidence, because I definitely think um, I've seen players. I won't give any names, but I've seen players um, have bad games against some of these bigger schools, and it bothers you a little bit, right? I mean, I'll speak for myself. I've I struggled against some of those bigger teams, and you know what was funny about that? Like when you play a team, when you're a UTSA playing one of these big P5, P4 schools, right? A lot of people from the outside look at it and they say, "Hey, well, there's no way y'all are going to win because these other people are just bigger and better than y'all." And when you get on the field, you realize, like, you know what? Like, you can play. I can play with these guys. Like, okay, they're good, but I can play with these guys. But there is like one or two people. Like, what they will have is one or two people on each side of the ball that's on another level, right? Like that is a thing, right? But not the entire team. So for the most part, but does those two or three people on each side of the ball that like may be like higher level than everybody on the other team, is that enough to like flip the scales, the way, is that enough to like flip the scales so far that the score ends up 56-7? No, that's actually not the case. What's interesting about those times, at least whenever I was there playing, is I remember game planning for Oklahoma State. And when I tell you we studied so much tape and we got there and they did nothing that was on the tape. All the keys some of the keys generally were the same, but it was just all out of different formations, different type of lineups. Like the coaching was just another level. And I remember going back to the sideline at one point, and coach is like, "We're just gonna run base," because he was getting danced. He was like, he was sort of at a loss of like, I don't know what else we're gonna do here. You know, I'm just gonna go base defense, and we just do our thing from there. Because so anyway, what the difference in how the program ran, the coaching levels is insane. Like the difference in coaching really is what really to me tips those scales as lot to make it as lopsided as those games turn out to be. I know I kind of went on a rant, but what I'm saying, but basically, it's a long way of saying that like being exposed by big time talent and those coaches, because the big time talent should include not just the players, those coaches on the other sidelines. I don't know if that'll have you ready quicker if You just got to go into that game with the right mindset as a player, as a coach. Um, and you got to go in there competitive, because some of that stuff can, like, it's the first game of the year. It could bring back bad memories from the last season, you know. Um, but some guys will get confident. Like, I'll tell you this: there's going to be a couple of guys on our team who have actual good games. Those guys are going to be buzzing, because guess what that means? They got some NFL tape. You go out and you play good against A&M, and you at UTSA, those are going to be the first clips on your highlight whenever you're trying to go to the league. So, like I said, this is a long way of me saying it can hurt people just as much as it can help people. But you just got to have the right mindset going into those. It's Rap says we got better at tight end after Oscar went down. Hard truth. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I think so too. I think the other guys that we have, I'm drawing blanks on their name right now because I'm not seeing them every single week, but they were a little bit more dynamic in the passing game. They weren't as good as a blocker as Oscar. So I think from a blocking standpoint, I think you miss Oscar, but from a passing standpoint, I do think some of those other guys were better targets, made themselves available a little bit more, especially downfield, and they made big time plays as well. Now we do need them to be very consistent, because they definitely, some of the other guys dropped passes that Oscar probably wouldn't, at a rate that's not great, but they'll get that type of thing covered, I think. But yeah, I agree with that from a receiving threat standpoint, to be fair. Zach says, would you say McCown stays at the one? Would you say McCown stays at the 1 seed uncontested? I'm assuming you're saying, do I think he's going to be a starter uncontested? Yes. I think he's earned that. I'll be the first to tell you. You can go back and check the tape. I was not a fan of him to start the year, but he grew on me. And he started making plays and started playing well. And yeah, I think he earned that number 1 uncontested spot. And everybody else is fighting for number 2, unless we land a huge QB recruit that is proven from a big time school or something. But we literally don't have the money to do that. So there you go. Yeah, McCown will be our number 1 going into next year. Robert Garcia says, good to see and hear you. It's good to see you in the comments, watching and listening. I appreciate all of you guys. Mike says, I hope there's transparency where the money is going. You know what? I'm not even so. That's a good point that you bring up, because I know I've been an advocate of, like, we need transparency. And I think to a degree we do, right? I go back to some of my tweets last week. I'm thinking about last week. One of the topics that folks were talking about on Twitter was Lisa Campos's what's her bold letter, and her talking about what sort of the plans were. And even some of the things she said on the radio show or something, where it was vague on what the plan was from an NIL standpoint, and or just raising money anyway. Like, a lot of schools are coming out with, like, what their plan is going to be, or however they're going to do things, and UTSA hasn't. But I tell people, like, they're not going to show everybody. They're not going to peel the curtain back and show you everything on how the sausage was made. Like, we'll get only, like for example, I feel like UTSA's video team over the last couple of years have been outstanding. Like, I mean, these little back scene documentaries on game week and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. I think they've done a great job. But they're not going to bring you into a staff meeting and show you the X's and O's and what plays we're going to call on third down, or what we're going to, you know what I mean? So, like, I think we have to understand and know what transparency is. to me, when you look at the bold letter that Lisa Campos put out, to me, that was them being transparent. So people are saying, oh, like, what's the NIL plan? Well, the plan is baked off in there. And it's a lot of like general, regular stuff that anybody would say. That's the plan. That's what they're going to tell you. They're not going to share or divulge the strategies they're going to use to, get into, build relationships with some of these bigger businesses. They're not going to tell you what Jordan Pelt's going to do on day one. And I think we have to acknowledge that as a fan base and acknowledge that as supporters and understand when they are trying to be transparent. So anyway, I hope they're going to be and also another thing too, go back and tell exactly where the money is going. I don't want to know that publicly. I know some of it publicly. Or I said publicly. I know some of the stuff people are demanding or getting at or getting from an NIL stand, or not what anybody from UTSA is getting, but I do know a little bit about who's prioritized and what's prioritized and what type of conversations are being had when the season ends or at the end of the year when the portal opens. You don't want that stuff out in public. You just don't want that stuff out in public because it can drive up prices everywhere. It can drive up players demanding more money that's in your own school. It's going to drive. I mean, I don't even know if tampering is a thing with NIL at this point. I don't, because there's no way they can. I mean, that's a whole nother story for another day. But like some of this stuff, I don't want it to be super transparent, especially about where the money is going as it relates to NIL and player payouts and things like that. It would be nice to know. I don't even know if you wouldn't want to put that public either. For selfish reasons, I'd like to know how much we're raising. That's me. The Doge effect. Oh, don't get me started on what my Twitter timeline is filled with. Is it just me? All right. I have a question for you guys. For you guys, the 20 of you that's here. Is Elon Musk like? I don't follow Elon Musk, but I see almost every tweet he posts. Is it the same way for y'all too? Yeah, and I see tweets from the Doge thing too, and I'm like, I don't follow these things. They're just, I mean, he owns Twitter, so I get it, but my goodness. Anyway, I digress on that. It's raps as I do. Still need to get rid of them. Yeah, they're not gonna get rid of Kurt Traylor, man. It's not happening. Kermit said, I saw our uniform company game one was on campus today. How do you feel about us finally switching to Nike? And are you worried that our new jerseys will be basic? So first off, I love the Nike switch because I'm definitely going to buy more gear, 1,000%. It's just not because I wear predominantly Nike shoes. And it's perfect. I don't like to do the mismatching of like Adidas and I'm sorry. I've never liked to do that. But yeah, I'm down for that. Am I worried about the jerseys being basic? Not really. But they are probably going to be a little basic, to be fair. Because I feel like Nike is taking this like minimalist approach. And it works sometimes, but sometimes it's just it's not great. It's not great. But they do have some nice uniform concepts depending on, I don't know. I think they can do cool stuff with ours though. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Wrapping up here. Shout out to Mr. Meat. He says, happy off season to y'all. Happy off season to you too, my friend. And Ania says, no, he got blocked and reported. He's talking about Elon Musk. Yeah, bro. He is. I used to follow him before he got weird, and it's just like I might as well say I follow him because I see him on my timeline more than anybody else. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. We're at the end of the questions. Yeah, like I said, we'll be back weekly. So tell a friend, like and subscribe. It costs you nothing to do. If you guys could drop a like on the video, that'd be super helpful so more people can see that we're back. And they can tune in as well. And yeah, I am going to sign off. I see we got a couple more comments in about the unis. If I didn't get to anything, or if you are watching this, and I just lost my train of thought right there. Anyway, it's time to go, guys. Bye. Holla. Oh no, I was saying yes. Hit me up on Twitter if I didn't get to something that you wanted. You wanted a question on, or you wanted me to comment on. Hit me up on Twitter, Darian at UTSA, or no, at Darian _UTSA. Peace out.